Hi everyone, welcome to the 6th edition of the monthly webinars that we run on various conditions and foot types and shoes and things like that. This is the last one for this year, and then we'll pick it back up in January, Feb next year, and we'll continue to roll them throughout the year monthly with various topics, and then they'll be available as a recording for those people that jump into the webinars. So there's just quite a few people jumping in now, so just give me a minute and then we'll begin. All right, we've got about 40 people and there's a few people jumping in, so we'll begin now. So again, thanks for joining. So today we're going to go through ski boots, football boots, cycling shoes and running shoes. So we're getting away from conditions and foot types today, which is a little bit different. So I'll just share my screen. So again, if anyone's new to these webinars, on our template page in the portal that you guys have access to, there is, I think there's about 180 or 190 templates now. So you just type what you're looking for and that should come up. So we're going to go for ski boots. We've got 3 at the moment, so I'll go through them pretty quickly. I'll touch firstly on the heated ski boots, which is something I've done for my ski boots and that we do sort of more around this time of year for people that are heading overseas. So if you're going into North America or Canada or Europe where it can be sort of, minus 25 degrees, having a heated ski boot liner can make your days more enjoyable. So I'll talk a little bit about that. So generally within a ski boot, we want to try and fill up the medial and lateral arch so that we get fast edge-to-edge contact, especially for sort of an intermediate to advanced skier. So again, as we touch on cast modifications and rear foot, it's 2 things that we can't give you that is based on the person's foot type and supination resistance and medially deviated subtalar joint axis. But for a ski boot, you're not actually walking. The boot doesn't bend at all. It's very stiff, as you know. And so for the vast majority of people, you're going to have sort of a mod root part first ray fill to make good medial contact with that arch. So a nice high arch in a 4-degree rear foot correction. And then we want to also build in either some lateral cast grind to increase the lateral column, or build in some sort of 4-foot valgus to create that fast edge-to-edge contact. So one of the problems with putting a 4-foot valgus into a ski boot is you're generally not going to have the space in the toe box if they're well fitted. So a lateral cast grind just picks up that lateral side of the midsection of the arch to create that lateral contact. So I've used a composite orthotic here, which is beneficial because it's the thinnest material that we have. So we're getting a decent amount of support into a 2.3 mil composite, keeping the heel cups nice and low, so 6 mil, so it sits low into the ski boot. And then with this one, I've added a 2 mil heel raise, and that's because with this one, we're talking about a heated plate at the front of the orthotic. So you do need to buy them separately. So there's something that the patients do provide. And the little heat plate goes into the center of the orthotic there. I might just stop sharing so I can show you what it's like. So into the front of it, we can put a little heated template, and then there's a little wire that runs down underneath the orthotic. So it pierces through the cambrel, runs in between an arch fill. So there's a medial and lateral arch fill, 2 mil raise, and then that little wire sits underneath the orthotic. You may or may not be familiar with ski boots, but the vast majority of them have got a little hole there, reinforced hole, so they've stitched around it. And that's essentially designed for people that want to put these through into the inside of the boot. So the idea being that the orthotic goes inside the shoe, the wire comes up the back of the boot, and then they have a little battery pack that clips into, and then that battery pack just sits on to the outside of the orthotic, of the ski boot there. And that way you've got warm toes throughout the day. So it's more common than you think. And if you've never thought about it, if you're seeing patients that go skiing each year overseas, then it might be a nice thing to offer them. So getting back into the script, in the notes here, so your pour-on thickness is going to be based on how much room you can get into the toe box of the shoe. Generally 1.6 mil with a soft 2 mil EVA cover works quite well. And then you may need to consider medial and lateral inflares, and you're going to need to consider those for cycling shoes, football boots, and running shoes as well. So I might just jump into the educational website to make sure you're across that. So in the educational website, you can go to orthotic additions. You can drill down into the 28 most common ones, which is that first section there. So that's a drop down on the prescription form. But you've also got additions in notes, and in there is a medial and lateral inflare here. So essentially, we're just narrowing the midsection of the orthotic on the lateral side and the medial side. So again, we're going to talk about that for cycling shoes, which can be quite narrow. For some running shoes as well, we need to incorporate that, and also soccer and football boots. You can also look at just medial inflares, which is one side, or lateral inflares as well. With ski boots and specific, roller skates and things like that, we often like to have some sort of lab discretion. And then we need an instruction to sandwich the heating plate between the EVA and the pour-on. And we generally need a tracing or the ski boot to do it properly. And then a channel's required. So we do an arch fill, and then we remove a channel down the middle, and that's where your wire sits. So the other ski boot templates are EVA, which is probably going to be most common for your, casual, 1 week a year skier, or your intermediate skier. Soft underfoot, theory being the same, is in that you want to create quick edge to edge contact. So midfoot controlling device with a high arch, and then some kind of lateral control, again, whether it be a lateral cast grind or a extended forefoot valgus, will be determined by how much room you've got in the shoe. If you've got people that are hiring boots and things like that, they're generally a bit more packed out, and you may be able to incorporate a forefoot valgus, again, keeping the heel cups low, and then just an EVA top cover. So tracing of ski boot liner provided, or the ski boot. Otherwise, you'll need to trim them at your end to fit. So I won't go through the advanced ski one there. It is just a composite shell without the channel down the middle, so similar to the heated one. You want to make good medial, good lateral contact for that quick edge to edge movement. Okay, moving on to football boots. So the football boot template or the soccer boot template are largely the same. So, excuse me. So the main points being here, again, it's difficult for us to tell you rear foot and design. It's based on things we don't have access to. The main point here being that you want to move towards PolyX if you can. So we've been 3D printing out a PolyX for a year now, and it's a little bit more forgiving than the PA11 3D print, and holds up much better than EVA. So if we go into the poly, this one here, and have a look at the rebound and compression rates. PolyX, it's easy, and it bounces back a little bit slower. So with football and soccer, you got a lot of jumping, side to side movement. If you go up and take a mark, if we're talking about AFL, and then land heavily on your feet. You want that orthotic to have some give in it. So your poly-X is going to give underfoot, as well as turn slowly. And that's also really good for your side-to-side movement. You get less irritation. So we recommend the poly-X for things like basketball, soccer, football, that side-to-side and jumping movements. The PA11 can be a little bit firm, as can the composite. They do have faster rebound rates. So they're good for, long distance running or one directional sort of sports. But the side to side and jumping, we generally recommend going across to the poly-X for that. Also lower heel cups. So a lot of your football boots are quite narrow and there isn't a lot of room in them. Some of them don't have tongues, so you're sort of trying to slide your foot in there with sort of just, stretchy material. So having a lower heel cup keeps the bulk down. And then covers, is up to you. We'll generally recommend the medium density EVA for wear and tear and football and running as well. It's a pretty hardy material, stands up to a lot of sort of running and jumping. The softer one may pack out a little bit with these sorts of jumping sports. And then, consider medial lateral inflated grinds if you're not supplying the boot to us. If you are supplying the boot to us, then we generally just want you to put in the notes, a little bit of lab discretion in relation to the grind to make sure that fits. I'm going to jump into cycling shoes. There's a few different templates here. We will be building out all the templates in semi-custom. So if it's got SC, it's a semi-custom template. It also says it over there. But at the moment, we're concentrating on custom. I do a bit of cycling and I also do a bit of mountain bike riding, and I do both of them in the same shoe. I'm pretty sure everybody's familiar with cycling shoes, but they just don't bend in the front, in the toe box. They're also generally pretty stiff. The mountain biking shoes less so than the cycling shoes. But because they don't bend and because most people are cleated into the clipped into the cleats, most of your control is going to come underneath the met heads. And for those people that do ride or, are across bike fittings and things like that, your cyclists generally want to have their knees tucked in nice and close to the bike, more aerodynamic, more power into the pedals. And so they do a lot of work with adjusting the cleats, turning them in or tilting them. There's only so much you can do within the cleat. So when you go into the template section, you've got forefoot valgus and forefoot varus, depending on what you want to do with the foot above the cleat. Are you trying to get that knee to rotate out? Then you're looking at, your forefoot varus sitting on top of the cleat, or you're trying to push that knee in, and that's where your valgus comes into play. If you're not worried about that alignment, then generally you want to create some sort of forefoot padding, because one of the biggest complaints with cyclists is that, sort of burning, numbness, pain on the ball of the foot, just because all the power is going through their met head. So if we look at the overall design to start with, hang on. Oh, sorry, there we go. Like with the ski boot, we kind of want to fill up the shoe a little bit. So we want to have nice high contact with the arch, so that when they apply that power onto the pedal, it's all sort of transferred through the pedal. You're not losing any with sort of, a little bit of pronation or what have you. So generally we maintain a higher arch, good contact with the MLA. Generally it's a sort of a mod root or mod root part first rate fill, even if the patient has a medially deviated axis, or you'd be leaning towards an inverted or a rear foot device. You probably don't need it for cycling shoes. So we're wanting to make good contact with that arch, stop the foot from pronating inside the shoe, and then we look at other things like shell material. So generally we use composite. A lot of the the shoes are made out of composite. Cyclists like things to be nice and stiff. You can get a good amount of control into a relatively thin piece of material with your composite. It is the thinner of all the materials. Your PAX and PA11 3D print are about a millimetre thicker to get the same control. So generally it's composite. Again, like football boots, we want to keep the heel cup nice and low. So there's no real need to have a high heel cup there. So we keep that low. All of them are going to have some sort of met dome built in, so low profile met dome, just to give that transverse arch a little bit of support so that you limit that sort of burning and numbness that often occurs. There is a 4-foot valgus built into this. Again, you may not need that, but like with the ski boots, you want to prevent movement either side, and you want to transfer all the power directly onto the pedal. So that's why that is there. And then we have medial and lateral inflare grinds. So again, I'll just quickly go back to that. It's probably the most important for the cycling shoes because they're so rigid. If there's any pressure on the medial or lateral midsection of the shoe, you'll often struggle to get it into the shoe. So by removing this section here and this section here, we take all pressure off the sides of the shoe. Some of those cycling shoes can be pretty expensive, and if you've got carbon fibre pushing into it, you can ruin the shoes as well. So it's for two purposes. It's for fit, and it's also to protect the shoe. We'll often do this sort of thing with R.M. Williams boots and things like that. Again, you've got a $600-700 shoe, and then you've got a carbon fibre or plastic pushing up against it. So yeah, just a good thing to do for your cycling shoes. And your 4-foot valgus is also to push that knee in. Your 4-foot varus one is the same. Again, if you want to push that knee away from the bike to get better tracking, then your 4-foot varus comes into play there. And then there's one just there for padding the 4-foot, and that's just the orthotics, the same design as far as a 6mm heel cup. Medial lateral inflares, composite orthotics, but you're looking at low profile met dome with a PMP slow release pour-on to sulcus. So you've got the small met dome behind it, and then your slow release pour-on padding the met heads, and everything else is the same. So again, for those of you who aren't familiar with the templates, you guys can grab a template and you can modify it to suit your needs. So if you like one of the cycling ones, you just grab that and you can clone it. As soon as you clone it, it becomes your template within your portal. Only you will have access to it. So all clients have access to the 180 odd that are here created by Orthotech. As soon as you create one, it's created by you, and only you and your team have access to that template. So I don't expect everybody to agree with everything I have to say, and that's the whole point of cloning it and making it your own. Everyone's got slightly different theories. Running shoes. All right, so we're getting on to the last one, which means we may have a little bit of time for Q&A at the end. So running, we've got distance running for a heel striker, distance running for a 4-foot striking person. So, and then we've also got sprinting. Again, feel free to modify them. So we'll look at heel striking first. So we have in here a rear foot device. So even if someone's got a normal foot, would normally be a mod root 4 degree. When they go to running, they've got a greater strike angle with their heel strike angle. If you're too prominent in the arch, and they go from a high heel strike angle across to that high gear loading and propel off the big toe, you can cause some irritation. So this is in here for something to consider. Actually, while I'm in here, for those of you who aren't familiar with how this works, there is a button up here that can take you into template descriptions. Sorry, I need a glass of water. And then you can search for the template you're looking for. Let's say you're looking for medial knee away, drop down, and then you can watch a 90-second video on why we've made certain selections. So, we don't want you just using templates without knowing why we're doing it. But when we do this, the video on this, it will say just consider a rear foot controlling device more so for comfort and that greater heel strike angle. And then medium arch, we don't want to be pushing up too high. We kind of, that pronation's going to occur to some extent while they're running. So you want to control it, decelerate it. You don't want to sort of push up too high and try and block it from a comfort perspective. That first MPJ cutout should not be there. Sorry, I'm going to get rid of that. I'll save this at the end. So looking at composite, which is our go-to for your one-directional athletes, so sprinting, running, it has a faster rebound. So as they pronate into it, it pops them back out. And so generally that's well tolerated for your one-directional athletes. 6 or 8 mil heel cup, probably push that up a little bit. But consider reducing it depending on the running shoe that they're in. Being a rear foot device, you need a rear foot post on it. Then I have added in here a 4-foot Barris runner's wedge, only because some people will go from that high heel strike angle into toe off pretty quickly, and some of them need some control. Now, I generally don't recommend 4-foot Barrises because it interferes with windlass to an extent, can dorsiflex the first ray, but it is something just to consider with your rear foot controlling running device. So that looks like 4-foot Barris runner's wedge. So it's similar to a 4-foot Barris wedge, which is there. So that normally goes from full thickness under the first down to nothing under the fifth. Essentially, this is the same, but it's almost like in a into gate plate type shape. So we're just taking all the bulk out of the toe box of the shoe. We're supporting the first ray and then tapering back underneath the met heads. Again, 4-foot Barris isn't going to be for everybody, but something to consider. Also recently added to this, looking at carbon fibre spring plates, more so tapered ones than straight. So the tapered carbon fibre spring plates will be slightly elevated at the heel. Slightly elevated at the heel, and then they'll drop down and then they'll kick up a little bit. So for those, you're probably aware that the running shoes now have got built-in carbon fibre plates. So if they're not in a carbon fibre shoe, they may benefit from that toe spring, that propulsion aid within the shoe. So jumping back into 4-foot runners, 4-foot striking. It's largely going to be similar, but we've gone back to a mod root part first row fill or whatever design that foot type needs. They don't need to, it's less important to consider that rear foot controlling device from a comfort perspective. And everything else is the same. You're looking at composite, you're looking at a lower heel cup. I'd probably push that up to 8. Rear foot post. And then we've removed the runner's wedge from that one because they don't need it. They're not sort of slapping down or going from a high heel strike onto that first MPJ quickly. They're sort of more starting on the 4-foot. But we have added, again, consideration of a carbon fibre spring plate if they're not using runners with a carbon fibre spring plate built into it. I was going to stop there, but given I've got 5 minutes, I might just touch on the sprinting one. I haven't had a look at this one for a little while, so let me just. So again, patients on their forefoot generally, on their toes, so you don't need to look at a rear foot controlling device. Arch height isn't overly important because they're sprinting. Composite there as well. The composite thicknesses, the sort of weight guide is, if you click on here, there is a weight guide there. Although a lot more goes into it than just weight, but people have always asked for, what's a good thickness for someone who's 60 kilos? Well, that's a good thickness, but you've got to look at, supination resistance and a bunch of other things, medially deviated axis, amount of pronation, etc. So, but there is weight guides there for you. Again, low heel cups. I'll probably push that up a little bit. Runner's wedge. That would probably depend on how much they're sort of collapsing while sprinting. They probably don't need it. This template was done a long time ago. I'm actually going to remove it. So remove that. And yeah, EVA top cover, possible carbon fiber spring plate as well. So if you guys ever, call us up and say, what do you do for this? And there's no template there, then we can just jump in here and create a template for you. And it's often how new templates get created. So we're 2 minutes away from, or 3 minutes away from 1 o'clock. So we try and keep these to half an hour so that you guys can have your lunch and watch them. So I'll stop sharing. If there's any questions, please ask. No questions at the moment. So we will pick this up early next year, late January or start of Feb, and we'll roll them on every month. If there's anything that you want to be included in these webinars, send us an email. We've pretty much set them all for next year. However, if there's things people want, we'll just put it into one of the webinars. It's pretty easy. Otherwise, thank you for your time. And if I don't see you before Christmas, have a great Christmas. Sorry, guys, I think there was a question. This is my first session. Is it possible to access previous webinars? Some of them are on the portal in the news and booking section. If not, Tegan's got them all, and I'm sure she'll send them to you. We generally make them all available for people that attend. and then we just randomly put up different ones on the portal for people to check in on. So if you want to send an email to hello@orthotech.com.au and request access to the previous webinars, I'm sure Tegan or Jess will make those available for you.